So here we go. Hey, we're live. Thank you, Sable, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for being here in chat whenever you may show up. If you're watching it afterwards, I appreciate that. We're going to talk about this second act of Arcane. I guess to launch right into it. So I am going to say that I had a hot take, and
I'm very curious about this since you mentioned it, and we're saying you're going to wait.
Here's my hot take. So it's adjusted a little bit, right? This is a hot take that I formed before Act 2 hit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I said was, every time Jinx, Kate, and Vi are presented, it becomes an exercise in boredom because we already know how the last season ended. We, the audience, can close the gaps in the story, and we should be allowed to do so. They should allow us to do that. And then I said other characters should take the spotlight because they are largely unresolved. So I think that I am simultaneously undermined and underpinned by the most current act. I think that I'm underpinned because it demonstrates the interest and the emotion with these new characters, or at least the unfocused characters up till this point. But there's an evolution that takes place with Vi, Kate, and Jinx. And it happens very rapidly. Despite the quickness, it is, I think, very believable, and it serves the series well. So we'll get into that, I guess, a bit later. So it's not every time Jinx, Kate, and Vi are presented, though I will say they're presented less in this season. We see less of them in this season. Vi, we didn't even see in the first, the first episode, she wasn't even there. There was no Vi.
She was in the first episode, yeah, she was.
But was she in episode 4?
Oh, in episode 4, no, I thought she meant.
Yeah, let me restate that. When I say the first episode I meant of this act, I apologize.
You're right.
She was not in episode 4 at all. I was just not there. Correct. Right? So we got a bunch of focus on other characters, which was important to the development. And then Vi shows up in episode 5. And then, of course, there's the capstone. I'd call it is sort of a kind of a resolution, but it's going to galvanize and catalyze, and obviously we'll launch into the next season. And I watched the it's not really a trailer, it's more of a teaser for the next, I say last season, next act.
Yeah.
The next 3 episodes, you know what I mean? The next presentation in the series. And that's some shit's gonna go down. Some really serious shit's gonna go down.
Yep.
It looks like I guess I'll say right now, spoilers. So if you haven't seen this and you want to see it spoiler free, please do come back later and watch our take. But we are 100% going to be spoiling the living shit out of the series. Hello, PH. Thank you for being here. Hello, Heath. Thank you for being here.
Indeed.
So I think that a lot of what we mentioned in the first act, as far as the dialogue not being strong, the music not landing, the different animation styles not really landing. Personally, for me, I know that it did land with some other people, so I'm not making that a blanket statement.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in this act, in these 3 episodes, it lands far better. Now,
yes,
I will say specifically, it lands better in episodes 5 and 6. 4, I was annoyed. Like, paint the town blue, I didn't care. It was still, I was coming off of the first 3 episodes and leading into the next 3, and so I was probably not quite in a position to allow it to be good, and that's on me. And I do plan on watching it a second and probably 3rd and 4th time. But at the moment, or in the moment, I should say, it did land for episode 4. 5 and 6 absolutely landed. And I will say that this is why I came to watch Arcane. These 3 episodes, I feel like we didn't even need. Oh, hey, Dave. Thanks for stopping in. I feel like what happened is that they wrote these 3 episodes first. They were relying on a time jump, and then they went, shit, we need more time. So they went and backfilled those first 3 episodes, which I think would probably have served better if, and I can't believe I'm going to say this because this has never come out of my mouth before, if it would have been spliced into episodes 4, 5, and 6 as flashbacks. That way you could still have those pieces. You could still have the amount of time that you need to tell your story, but you could make it more important as we see where the characters are. Like if we saw Caitlin wake up with Maddie in bed, that's a head spinner. Whoa, what happened? And then we can go into a little bit of a flashback to explain why and how that happened. We can get our we can get Isha, the incorporation of Isha with Jinx, and so I really think that would have been a better approach to the series. Now, as it stands, if this was what they wrote first, if this is where they wanted to begin the next season, then I kind of sort of understand why they went and did what they did with the first 3 episodes. I'm not excusing it. I just understand it because, like, things would have been happening extremely quickly. And I think, unfortunately, they weren't really relying on the strength of the streaming medium to allow the audience to go back and watch. Right now, I didn't, but the vast majority of people did went back and watched. So in that sort of
had already watched, like myself,
right,
series like 10 or 12 times,
right, and like could have allowed for a flow. And I think what happened is that some, I'm going to say producer, probably put it in someone's ear that no, we need to backfill the story. We need to fill them in on what happened between the end of the first season, the beginning of the second season. So just kind of back it up and begin it a little bit earlier and show what happens the moment after the bomb hits, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like that's kind of what happened because the second, I keep saying season. The next episodes 4, 5, and 6. I'll speak in terms of episodes. I think it's going to be easier for me and everyone to track. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 are so well written and so cohesive, and they rely so much on some of the
previous season.
Yeah, the things that were established in the previous season to a point where, like, it is a natural flow from the end of the last season into episode 4, 5, and 6. And like, I really think that those first 3 episodes could probably have largely been removed. But if you need them, if you need the time, if you don't want to rely on the audience for whatever reason, then I think allowing them to infill the details as flashbacks, again, can't believe I'm saying this, I hate flashbacks. I feel like that would have been a better decision.
So essentially what you're saying is that I was right.
From last well, I don't see. I'll have to go back and watch our conversation because I know that you did put forward a rewrite, and I don't know. I think we both arrived independently at the fact that the first episode is definitely
at the very least, I was saying that they should not have ditched the convention that they had already set up of making the cold open a flashback or a preview of, extra information about whatever character is going to be actually driving that episode forward.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then I agree with it. PH. Yes, they actually got different writers now. I believe.
Some of them are different.
Exactly. Some of them are different. I think it largely remains unchanged, but there's like
episode 6. Episode 6 was written by Alex Yee, who also wrote episode 9 in season 1.
Makes sense.
He co-wrote episode 9 along with Christopher Lee.
And he's those 2 are the showrunners.
Yep.
So the writer showrunner.
And episode 6 is arguably the best of the season so far, I would say. Although episode 5 is incredibly strong too.
I don't know. 5 is very strong. 6, 6 is probably the strongest.
They're both.
But there's that, like the end of 4. The end of 4 is a gut punch, right? Where Vander recognizes Powder, and he calls her Powder because he doesn't know her as Jinx, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So Heath agrees. Good. He says having Caitlyn wake up with the other chick in bed could have been a great introduction. Yeah. It absolutely could have.
Right?
I think that would have.
I think
that was probably where they started, and then they went, no, we can't do it this way.
It actually probably would have. Yeah. I totally actually agree that would have landed better because it'd be like, what the hell? Who is this?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas, let me go off a little bit because my first impressions were, oh yeah, this is the good stuff when I watched this act, right? Because this is the reason we were watching Arcane. This is what we came for.
Yes.
Thoroughly enjoyed all 3 episodes.
Completely agree.
And I don't think anything that you're saying is incorrect. I also, for as strong as episodes 4, 5, and 6 are, they still have some problems, and it all stems from the fact that we had Act 1 in the first place.
I don't disagree with that. I think that you're completely correct on that. I have notes on that.
And it actually starts right with Maddie waking up in Kate's bed. Here's the reason that it didn't land for me. It was oddly specific. When we're introduced to Maddie in episode 1, and she walks up to Vi.
You mean episode 4? Episode 1?
No, I mean in episode 1. I'm all
all the way back to 1. Okay, right. She walks up to Vi.
When she walks up to Vi, and Vi is half passed out drinking.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And she says, Vi, that's not Maddie's voice. That's Ella Purnell. That's Jinx's voice. So for whatever reason, they were trying to set up that that there was going to be some kind of, and this has never been paid off. So I don't know why they did this now. But if you go back and watch episode 1 again, and she walks up and says, Vi, that's Jinx's voice. And then Vi sits up and Maddie starts talking in her actual voice, right? And we get introduced to her. And so for me, having a character that was introduced as some kind of a connection or even stand-in for Powder / Jinx to Vi, waking up in Kate's bed felt really, really weird. But
and that is why I don't feel of a continuity issue from
exactly. I don't feel like they thought
the second act. Yeah, yep.
I don't feel like they thought through the first act anywhere near the way they should have. They put all sorts of. By the way, here's another one. Abe Sapien, the fish guy, doesn't appear at all in this act.
Yeah, I think
these 3 episodes, and I didn't even notice he didn't show up until the end.
I was
like, wait, you never saw a fish guy.
You said this to me before I had started watching. You gave me your first impressions. Yeah. You mentioned him, and I think I maybe noticed him in one still image. But I don't know if it was him. It was just a fish guy.
Yeah, it's one of the same fish people species. But it's not the actual ape.
Like I remember watching and going, that could have been him, but who cares?
Yeah,
I didn't need that. So I agree with
you. The fact
show up anywhere.
Also, Shield guy only shows up in the montage at the start of episode 4 or episode 5 rather. And we don't miss his presence
by the way. That was an excellent excellent little montage.
Like the montages in these 3 episodes are much better.
Yes.
The writing's on point. The montages are much better. The animation actually
the deviant animation where they change from the 3D style, the 3D 2D style to especially when they get inside Warwick's head and we can see through his eyes.
And that was awesome. That totally works. Of the deviant, other than they had one of their black and white slideshows at opening episode 4, and I thought that was once again I was like, oh man, they're doing this again.
Yeah.
So that was the way they opened episode 4, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Luckily, my notions of my apprehensions, I guess I should say, were quickly dashed, and thankfully so. But there, all of the issues from Act 1 remain and actually weaken Act 2. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 should have happened a lot sooner than they did. we should have gotten here right away because
Yeah, I agree.
here's
agree.
what I proposed actually to you, and I don't think you read it after you watched, but the scene in episode 5 where Vander/Warwick is hugging Vi, and she looks over and tells Jinx, he's your come
dad
on, what
too,
are you
yeah.
waiting for? He's your dad too. And
Mhm.
they all get into a hug, and the family is reunited. I teared up.
Oh,
Both times
I had a lump in my throat for sure. That was
and
incredible. That was an
and
incredible moment.
that should actually, this is what I said to you about, this is why I made the fearful symmetry correct to you.
Yeah, right.
That scene should have ended episode 3 of this
I agree.
season. That way we could put.
Well, ended episode 3. Let me think about this.
Because the end of episode 3 of the first season was Jinx blowing him up and killing Vander, and Vi smacking her sister and running away, and then Silco getting taken.
You mean season 1?
I'm talking. Yes, episode 3, season 1.
I see. In
episode 3 of season 2 should have ended with the family reunited in its new monstrous form, right?
I don't agree with that, and here's why.
Okay.
Here's why. Because truly, in this season, everything that was true in season 1 has been turned on its head.
Right.
So
that's kind of my
season
point.
1, we had a family split. Now we have a family coming back together. And in season 1, we had a whole bunch of colors that indicated specific themes and moods. Speaking of theme, the theme of this particular act, this set of 3 episodes, is family in all of its forms. So the first one was death in all of its forms. This one is family in all of its forms. And that it's really very obvious. I don't really feel like we need to speak to that so much because there's so much else to talk about in this season, but it is about family, this particular season. Good God. These episodes. I'll get there. I promise. I'm going to have to continue to correct myself. So, like, for example, in season 1, white represented peace and warmth and security and comfort. White in this season is representing purity, but a violent kind of expurgative purity. So Caitlyn's uniform is white, and she is marching on Zaun, and she is going to destroy Shimmer. She's going to destroy Jinx. So it is a type of purification, and so now it's been turned on its head. It's gone from a very homey, very welcoming, very gentle color to an extremely violent color. Piltover and Zaun, first of all, Zaun has completely changed colors. It's no longer green, it's blue, and Piltover is red. So they haven't changed colors, they haven't flipped.
Noxus is red.
Noxus is red, but Noxus has a presence in Piltover, which is why Piltover's main color is red. The prison, all of the rail cars, we only ever see those in red. There's red banners. There is red all over the place in Piltover. And it's because red still represents violence. It still represents war and conflict. It just now is visiting Piltover. Piltover is actually the aggressor now. And blue still represents freedom, but now Zaun is represented by blue. So it's like I want to say they've done a complete flip, but they have, but in relation to like Vi and Jinx. So Jinx now went from being just a complete irredeemable villain to a freedom fighter and a hero. Zaun looks to her for direction and for liberation. And Caitlyn has become this unbelievably militant figurehead at the instruction of Ambessa and Noxus. So the red is definitely the Noxian influence, but the whole world has been spun on its head. And I am so very thankful that they've continued with this use of color to highlight these different themes, because I was really missing that in the first 3 episodes of the season. They did nothing with the color in the first 3 episodes, except for maybe at the end with Caitlyn, but not really. So I'm very, very happy that we got all of this out of these 3 episodes here. So I think that it's really very satisfying to see that return, and which is again another reason why I say I think that they were probably planning originally on starting here, because it's just a continuation of theme and the type of set dressing that they've given to the themes, the fact that it's an inversion of, I can think of one other more successful inversion in a television series, and that's Arrested Development, believe it or not. So Arrested Development is, I think it's like 3 seasons long. And then, so we watch everything happen from the first episode to the last episode. There's a huge gap. And then Netflix is like, oh, we'll pick this up and do a 4th season. Mm-hmm. And the 4th season, if you pay close attention, it actually undoes literally everything that happened in the first 3 seasons. So we go from start to finish and then from finish to start again. And it's really well done. The humor is incredible. It's a great series, but this is doing that same thing. Maybe not in as time-ordered a fashion, but definitely with regard to theme. So I'm really happy that has now come back. And I think that it's interesting to change the colors' meanings so that we are now looking for that same color to see what's going on with it, right? I've talked for a while now. Do you have something you want to talk about? I don't want to monopolize the time.
I'm gonna have to think more about color specifically.
Sure.
I have done in the first season, especially with Vi's eyes, which I've noticed have never been blue in this season. In the first season, they were flickering back and forth between blue and gray all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any characters' eyes changing color like they did in the first season, so I don't think there's as much thought given to color in this season, to be honest.
Well, Warwick's eyes change. Warwick's goes between green and blue, right? He's heterochromatic, right. So he's green and blue.
He's got heterochromatic eyes, but then but that's just when he's in a rage state, right?
Yes, but that still speaks to it still speaks to the theming of the colors, because red represents conflict and war and violence and blood, and so when he's raging, that makes perfect sense. And then when he's calm, he's got a green eye because he is a product of Zaun from that first season when Zaun was green and it was all Chemtech. But he also has that blue eye, so there's a conflict there, right? He's being bound, but he's seeking some form of freedom. It's freedom from this unfortunate sympathetic new form and, the bestial mindset that's sort of come along with it. So I think it's still strong. I think you're right. I don't think there is as much eye color change, but I don't think that's necessary to communicate the theming and the colors.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that, but I also don't think I agree entirely. I'm just not sure how or why that doesn't quite land for me when I think about it at first blush. Yeah.
Well, we could go.
And also the blue that represents Jinx, actually, that the Zonites take on for their own, is a very different blue than Piltover. Piltover is a royal blue.
But it's still. I get that it's a different blue, but it still works in the theme, and I think that it's important that the blue shifts from that Hextech royal blue to Jinx's dirtier blue, because it's more indicative of the character having that influence over the population, but it still does represent that freedom. So it doesn't represent. This is not the blue that represents Hextech, right? It is a different blue, but that blue still represents freedom. And this goes back to, and I think we discussed a little bit.
Hextech's kind of a cerulean, Jinx is a periwinkle.
We did talk about this a little bit in the first season, you and I don't know if we maybe talked about it with Heath or who, maybe it was just you and I together, but there is a layering that takes place in that first season that I think is I think that it's important to note the different shades of the colors, but I think that there is an overall presentation of color blue or color red or purple, or because there's a bunch of different things that it could speak to depending on the characters that we're viewing or the situations or that sort of thing. Like gold hasn't showed up virtually at all in this season that I've really taken note of. I mean, it's possible that I missed it. I mean, I guess it's kind of sort of on the Nox and banners, but like not really.
It's still Mel's color too.
Yeah, yes, it is still Mel's color. Mel's color still is white. She's still wearing white.
Yeah,
it's dirty and it's a little shadowed, like it's overshadowed for sure. It's not as pure as it was, but she's still in that white garb, and it's still, gold is still hers, white is still hers.
Yeah, when she breaks the chains, that's her tattoos. Okay, here's the other thing is now apparently those gold tattoos that she has aren't actually tattoos. I think it's implying she was born with them.
Oh, here, real quick. Micah says the dirty blue is still brighter, like a polluted sky, yet a sky still. Freedom, yet accepting the consequences of how you get there and the past mistakes being embraced instead of rebuked. I agree with this take. I think that blue still does represent freedom. It still does represent a sky. It's just a different blue. It's a different sky. It indicates a different driving motivation, a different end goal.
I'm just not.
Sense.
I think probably where I'm not tracking with that is I don't think that the Piltover's royal blue represented any of that last season in the first season. Again, not saying you're wrong.
No, I think it quite clearly did. I think from the first episode, it quite clearly did when the kids were jumping across the rooftops, and we got a lot of camera shots either over the city at the sky or actually looking up from below toward the sky. There was a lot of bird images, especially when Powder was in frame, because there was an animal thing with her in the first season. And I think it definitely very much was associated with freedom in the first season. I think there are other things that were maybe more strongly associated with it, but I think freedom is for sure one of them.
The sky, yeah. Again, the Piltover royal blue that the enforcers all wear, I think that has a very different connotation. But regardless, like I said, I'm not dismissing it at hand. I just think that there's maybe something else there that is preventing it. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I was like, at first, I'm going to need to sit down and think about that and ask the what not why questions, and
But I had just interrupted.
I never finished actually figuring out what Eyes Vi-color represented in the first one. It was fairly easy to do with Powder's eyes, for example, but not so much with Vi. And there was definitely thought put into the color choices in the first season. Again, like you said, less so in this second season, at least in the first act, the first 3 episodes.
Absolutely. I think that it's completely missing in the first act of the second season.
Which is
such a shame. I was so disappointed in specifically that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be disappointed in.
Yeah, there was.
The writing, thankfully the writing in this act and act 2 is back up to the kind of snuff that we have learned to expect from the first season. Especially episode 5 has some amazing writing. There's just the first interaction between Singed and Ambessa and Caitlin was just gold.
Very good.
I loved the exchange when Caitlin, does a little intro kind of accusation to Singed, and then Ambessa walks around behind him and she says, "In my experience, only guilty men answer accusations with silence." And he just comes right back. He's like, "In my experience, no one in power is innocent." And just there's some really just sparkling lines of dialogue in this.
Yeah, the dialogue is much better in this second set of episodes.
But it's not just
much better.
Not just dialogue either. The actual screenwriting is far better. Like the whole scene, the only true flashback we've really gotten in this season is again in episode 5
with Silco and Vander,
with Silco and Vander and
Vi's mom.
and Vi and Powder's mom. Oh, that scene was so good. It was so good. We could have almost started the entire season right there.
You could have put that scene anywhere and it would have worked. So we could have started there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could actually you could have put it anywhere and it would have worked.
It needed to be where it was, but it's just so good that it gives us so much additional information. All of it's subtext. All of it. For one, Vander was in love with Kate and Vi's mom, right? It's obvious. So there's just so much. We could probably talk about that one scene and how it recontextualizes all of season 1 for an hour. Yeah. I mean that was one of the big reasons too that episode 5 is so strong, and kind of that scene almost choked me up just on its own, because of how kind of almost idealistic it is, and knowing what's going to end up happening. We also learned that for whatever reason, and we don't know specifics, and we don't really need to. I mean, for as much additional information as that scene gives us, it also gives us even more questions too. For whatever reason, when Kate and Vi's parents died on the bridge, that's the reason that Vander and Silco fought in the river in the first place, that he tried to kill Silco. Why specifically? Don't know, but for whatever reason, he blamed the love of his life's death on Silco. There's just, and so when he takes the kids in as their dad, he's like, this is the world he wanted in the first place. He also is the one who named Violet. So obviously there's a very close connection that he and their mom shared in the first place. It's just so much there. It's so good.
Yeah, it is a really, really good scene. He says he's been paying attention to eye color in the season because we both mentioned it in season 1. I am not a thunder stealer. I don't like taking credit that's not mine. That was all pointed out by Sable. I think by the time that we had a conversation with you, Heath, I was in agreement, and so it maybe looked like that it was something that was coming from both of us, but it was 100% in. Just to put that out there.
I mean, we're all bouncing ideas back and forth.
Yeah, and that's kind of how this thing works. So I have some notes here on the episodes, and we can just go in order. Like,
sure.
I have here, I hate the episode 4 opening. That's not a serious statement. It was a very like gut punchy kind of like like what is it happening? Like, it was good.
I'm gonna interject with one thing that actually occurred to me after watching this act. I wonder if, and especially after what you said, I think you may be right that Act 1 was actually written after Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if doing the slideshow style montages like they've been doing in this season is a budgetary issue.
Oh, it could be. I mean, the thing costs it's $250 million. Right?
$250 million.
Yeah, that's like
this show.
I'm sure that in some places they're like, well, let's, if we're going to do a montage, let's maybe consider doing it in purely 2D or in the storyboard style to avoid really, I would say, overinflating the budget. But it's like that. That seems like I'm saying that they didn't get their money's worth, and I feel like they absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
And B, it's already a pretty big budget. So
yeah.
I won't use that word, but I guess I've already kind of dropped it. So there it is.
I mean, yeah, like It's more than most movies, but think about what you're getting for it. You're getting
yes,
you're getting you're getting, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're getting 6 feature length films for the cost of one, or the cost of a very, very high budget one.
yes.
Is essentially what you're getting. So,
And I think that it's going to be worth it. I think that I am positive that Netflix has seen a bump in subscriptions for the month so that people can watch. And they will likely get people forgetting that they subscribed and get an additional month or 2 out of them. So I think it's going to end up paying off for Netflix. It's a really, really wonderful series. I'm so glad that I can say that with conviction again, because the first 3 episodes, it was a little dubious. It was a little shaky there, but I'm glad we got to where we are now.
It's odd that Act 2 is so good. It's back. I would say it's back to the quality that the previous season was, because I'm now once again here. This is a thought that occurred to me that really demonstrates the weakness, I think, of the first 3 episodes. That kind of sums it up. I mentioned last week how we got to the end of like every single episode. So in the first season, you get to the end of the first episode, and the first episode opens in what you would consider to be a fairly standard way for a show of this type.
Yes.
Setting up a particular kind of expectation, and you think, okay, I know where this is going. Then you get to episode 2, and things do not go the way that you think. And by the end of that episode, you get to the end of every other episode in the first season, and you have no idea what's going to happen next. And then when it does happen, this is how good the writing was, that when it does happen, it feels inevitable. You're like, of course it had to happen.
Yes. And here's the thing with that, right?
There was no way to anticipate that.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. We now are on to them. Like, we know how they manipulate us. We know how they misdirect us and direct us. And this is gonna filter through into my notes, because there are certain things that, like, I was actively taking notes as I was watching, and I tried to, like, when a character was introduced or when a scene was introduced, I very often had this very knee-jerk sort of reaction to the character or the situation, and I would just write a line, just like, blah, 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 there's that line, and it more often than not bore out. So I kind of wanted.
Well, I think we'll
just do that.
I think part of that, where I was going with that is, that's one of the reasons that the first act of season 2 doesn't feel like Arcane. Because by the end of each episode in season 1, or in act 1 of season 2, you're like, you're not sitting there thinking, I have no idea where this is going to go. It all seems pretty staid, I would say.
Yes.
STAID. Yes. There's nothing really unexpected that happens, which, again, anyway, we'll get to that later. I have all sorts of comments about how the weaknesses of the first act carry forward and things.
I want to get into that for
a second. So,
I want to get into that for sure.
Yeah, but
thankfully,
in episodes 4, 5, and 6, we're back to, I have no idea what's going to happen next.
I don't really have any idea. I can guess at some things, and I'll definitely say this. There were 2 instances, 1.5 instances, where I feel like knowing the game and the characters in the game was a benefit. But it wasn't like, it was more of a recognition sort of a thing. Like, oh, okay, I get it. I know who that is. Or I can probably guess at who that is. And I'll get into that in a minute.
That's all. I'm not somebody who ever played the game.
So
last time.
So I have here, one of my notes is Jinx almost steps on the bug. They're a little arena battlers with the crayon on them. But it's a camera trick and a fake out to the audience. She's actually reforming in order to care for the young girl, and she's begun now to actually care for life. And to juxtapose that against the first season, we've seen her just carelessly stomp on things, and especially with insects. There was the butterfly motif in the first season, and they ended up becoming bombs. Most of her explosive devices come in the form of some kind of animal, but this is a life that she saves. And it wasn't that she was going to step on it, it's that the camera made us think that. So she was never going to step on it in the first place. That's one of my notes.
Right.
I have that in this scene, Jinx knows who she is. She reflects as Powder, and she is reformed. She actually also even says Jinx is dead. I don't think she uses the name when she says that. She might say that person's dead or she's dead, indicating Jinx. She doesn't say that she's Powder, but she definitely is putting Jinx away.
She's actually fixed her mirror too. Did you notice?
Yes, the mirror is now fixed, and the broken mirror shows up for Caitlyn and Vi later, but it has been repaired for Jinx.
Yeah, Vi breaks her mirror the way that Powder's mirror was broken.
Yes, and Caitlyn is there's a period right at the beginning, I think it's either as or right before Ambessa comes into the room where they're holding a meeting, her and Maddie, not the bedroom, just the office, I guess. And she's looking at the wall, and there is this round magnifying glass, and Jinx is reflected in the glass, but it maps perfectly over Caitlyn's reflection.
Yeah.
So that's sort of an indicator that Caitlyn has been fractured a little bit, and this is the result of the death of her mom, et cetera, probably, going into Zaun and, executing on this police state that she's really not proud of, and that's evident that she's not proud of it in some of the things that she says. I have here that Rictus is a bad name because Mad Max, Rictus Erectus, and that's as soon as they said his name, I was like, oh, that's kind of a bad name. It took me out immediately.
It makes me think of like the Joker or something.
Okay.
Or a rictus grin is something that happens in death, right? It's a little on the nose.
Yes, it's very on the nose, but it's also like I immediately reflected on Mad Max, and I was like, oh, that's a bad name. I should have used something else. I have another note here that says Jinx is dead, which speaking about the line that she says, and then I have Isha is now Jinx ? Because Isha had won the little bug battle, and so the deal that they had made apparently was that Isha could get her hair dyed blue.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jinx follows through and gets her hair dyed blue. And I follow that up with Jinx has become an ideal. She's now a Zaun ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So the person has died, quote unquote, as stated by Jinx. But now the ideal lives on through the people of Zaun, and that's all over the place in the dyed hair. I mention Kate's reflection that's mapped onto Jinx. I say a clear time jump has taken place, ! Because I was very happy about that. I have the firelights are Jinx's fans. So when Sevica comes in and starts to talk to Jinx about how she's needed, she needs to be seen, she needs to present herself to Zaun, they're all looking up to her. She says the firelights are looking up to you, and that blew my mind. I think that these are all pieces to an obvious time jump that's taken place.
Yeah.
But it was very, I think, I just found that to be poignant. It was obviously a throwaway line. And nothing really comes of it. There are some of the firelights that show up. There's a little bit of their inclusion, but it's more to sort of demonstrate that Zaun is now a unified front.
Yeah.
And it's because they're suffering through an invasion.
And also the Kim Barons are all gone.
Yes. I think these episodes demonstrate more that the first episode could have been cut, possibly all of Act 1. Act 1 was all resolution that we didn't need. We already discussed.
Right, yeah. There are some things that happened in Act 1 that we did need to see to set up. But the thing is, all the setup was already done by the end of season 1, right? Mm-hmm. Like we talked about.
Yeah, the setup for this payoff was season 1.
Yeah.
That was the setup.
We didn't need additional setup. That's why it feels like the first 3 episodes are just sitting there spinning their wheels. Pretty much.
Yes, it feels like spinning the wheels, and it feels like a mistrust in the audience.
We did need the introduction of Isha, given what happens to her in this act.
We did need the introduction of Isha.
But that was not handled well enough because, like you said last week when we were talking, for the first 3 episodes, she's an accessory. She's not a character.
That is true.
Now she's a character. We needed to have a little bit more of an introduction so we could really invest in her before this act, so that what happens at the end of this act hurts.
And I think
it doesn't hurt as much as it should.
I think this is another indicator that it was written hastily, meaning the first 3 episodes were written hastily after this was already sort of semi-established as the beginning of season 2, because it didn't matter where Isha came from. All that mattered is that she was there with Jinx. And so that's how she's treated in the first 3 episodes. And it's very obvious.
Right.
But obvious, now again, I'm going to say obvious too much, I guess. Obviously, she's much more important than that. And I want to bring that up too. But so here's a bunch of stuff about color that we already talked about. I don't need to bring that up again. So in the moment when Ambessa is leaving the prison, I think who's leaving and who's coming? Yes, Jinx and Sevica are coming in. Jinx is in the disguise. Ambessa's leaving to go to the what do you call them? Rail car, the elevated car, sure. And Ambessa gives a sort of a sidelong glance at them and then sort of ignores them and moves forward. Based on what we know of Ambessa and her involvement in literally all of this conflict, the note that I took as a sort of knee-jerk reaction was Ambessa recognized Jinx and Sevica, but is going to let this happen. That was wrong. That was totally wrong. That was a knee-jerk reaction.
It just didn't register with her. Like, she's observant enough. She picked up on it, but it's one of those things where you notice it and then you don't realize you noticed it until later.
Yeah, like you notice it, you feel like something's out of place, you ignore it, and then you reflect on it.
As she's standing waiting for the cable car to come, she's reflecting on it. She's like, wait a minute.
Yes.
Blue hair, that color blue hair.
Yep.
Something's off. That was a very short
that I have remarkable sequence with Warwick. When we first really see him in action, it was very tense and very, very awesome. And then the resolution to that sequence was devastating and it was exhilarating and it was just a moment of clarity and elation, at least for me, that he recognized her and stopped. And then we go into episode 2. And I have here, Vi is now reflected in a broken mirror. And she's also the one seeing figments of her past, right? So as we're seeing this montage and she's punching people,
she's
punching Caitlyn, she's punching Vander, she's punching Silka. There's a whole bunch of people who she's taking this out on because she's breaking, right? But she's not broken yet. Then between scenes, I guess I wrote this. I may have paused it and thought, I think that I'm not typically one to predict something, but I'm also not typically one to sort of give a very timely sort of discussion, right? Because it's currently ongoing. We're in the middle of it. But I think that I'm going to predict that we will get a happy ending. Now, the reason that I'm saying that is because I thought a lot about this idea that things have been flipped upside down based on the first season. And we got a very tragic ending. But I think that we're seeing everything build to, it's not going to be storybook happy ending. But it's not going to be as devastating as the last season was. I will, I guess, go so far as to say that's a prediction. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe we'll see it bear out.
I think that I think that Jace shooting Victor kind of put a nail in that coffin, to be honest.
I don't think Victor's dead. I don't think.
Oh no, he's not dead. Oh, of course he's not dead. I mean, he was.
Victor said the line. He said the line, and I love it.
He did.
Yeah, he said the line, and I was very, very happy for that. But I don't think Victor is dead. I think
he's definitely not dead, because episode 6 starts with the end, right?
And there's going to be a transformation. I think a second transformation of Victor.
Yeah.
Also, that's another thing that we needed in setup, right? We needed Victor to merge with Hextech. We needed Jace to spend time with him. We actually also needed Jace to be zapped out of reality into the void. So we needed there are definitely things that we needed, but I think they probably could have been better handled in some other way.
This is why I said I think that the end of episode 3 should have been. It would have been a gut punch in the opposite way to have episode 3, the end of Act 1 of season 2, ending with, "Come on, what are you waiting for? He's your dad too." And then that group hug of this new monstrous form of this family reunited.
Right.
Would have been amazing.
The music that plays is so effective in this moment. I don't recall the lyrics, but it's something akin to like, what have we become? What have they done to us? What have we allowed them to do to us? But I think much like in the first season, the central interrogation that you say. So I think the central interrogation, which is, can a monster be redeemed?
Yeah, can a monster be saved? Yeah,
is very sort of prescient in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if the answer is no, and even if the answer is a more harsh, they shouldn't, we're kind of seeing that, we're kind of pulling on that thread a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Through episode 4, through episode 5, we're kind of pulling on that thread to see if there's more there.
Which
is why it feels more like Arcane, because we are seeing this sweep through into the the next 3 episodes, which was just also really very awesome.
Just further reinforces how unnecessary most of the first 3 episodes actually were.
It sure does.
We're going to keep going back to that.
It's a shame that we're
because there's time is so limited. Time is so limited. They really don't have any to waste, and the first 3 episodes feel like mostly waste. Now,
I agree. Mostly, yes.
Now we have only 3 episodes left to resolve all this stuff going on, from Mel and the Black Rose to where is Echo and when is he going to come back with his time powers, to what exactly happened to Jace and why did he shoot Victor, to what is going to be the result of what happened to Victor, to how are Warwick and Vi and Jinx even going to resolve at this point. Also, Caitlin and Vi need to get back together from we because we didn't have enough time to spend on it. Kate's heel face turn back to opposing Ambessa feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yes, I agree. I think
you tackle your girlfriend. You tackle your girlfriend in one conversation after this how many months apparently it's been, and then now you're right back on board. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like all of this stuff. I really hope they haven't backed themselves into a corner, because now we only have 3 episodes left to have all of this stuff tie together somehow.
Yeah, I don't really know how they're going to do it. We needed more time to see Caitlin, and if they would have, dispensed with the majority of the first 3 episodes, not all of it. Again, there's stuff there that we need.
Yeah.
If they dispense with the majority of it, we'd have more time to see Caitlin sort of start to question the Noxon rule and why are they doing this, and we don't really get that. And so, like you said, the heel face turn seems really sudden, abrupt. It flirts with being unbelievable. I did end up believing it. So,
what was their plan too? When you really sit and think about it, what were they hoping to accomplish? Like just knocking up some people out and escape with Vander, or they didn't actually do anything, right? They just attacked some people.
Right. They prevented Vander from being poisoned, essentially. And then they knocked a couple of people out. But we know that that's not going to end well. And we know that Ambessa, relentless is a word to describe her. I feel like if you don't kill her, she's going to come back at you. I think that's pretty fairly obvious. So I don't know what the plan was there. It's I think very sort of hasty. But you know, I can believe it in the moment, faced with what they were faced with, based on their needs, you know, their requirements of the moment. I can sort of be a little bit forgiving in that regard, but I agree with you. I think it's very, very shaky ground. Like, I definitely need to read into it to prop it up. I'm okay doing that, but I will absolutely acknowledge that that's what's being done.
And we shouldn't have to, though, because the first season never made us, right? Even stuff that at the time we saw it and we're like, oh, that doesn't really make sense. It always had a solid underpinning to it, and we always knew in the moment that things were happening, why they were happening, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that the whatever their plan was, the whole thing with Kate and Vi and Jinx saving quote unquote Vander. I mean, you know, preventing him from being poisoned and turned back into a monster, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. Yes, they did that, but after that, then what?
Yeah, then what?
We needed a little bit more in the moment to really understand what was happening there.
And right, because ostensibly,
in and of itself, if there's
Go ahead.
If there's anything that weakens episode 6 and makes episode 5 the best episode of this season so far, it's that. It's just that the whole situation that initiated the cataclysmic conflict with Noxus doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We also don't know exactly why Jace was coming in there to try and kill Victor. I feel like I know that we're going to get some kind of answer to it. We have to, because that's really important, obviously. Mm-hmm. I feel like we should have known a little bit more about that, other than he's just off his nut before it happened, right?
Yeah.
So those things, again, I'm going to lay the blame on the first 3 episodes, taking up time that we should have spent elsewhere. These are things that we should have spent more time on.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There are definitely there are situations and character decisions that they require a more fleshing out over a longer period of time to be believable and to make it so that people like me, though willing to read in and prop it up, don't have to.
Exactly.
So I certainly agree with that.
We also needed more time to really invest in Isha's character so that when she blows herself up at the end, it actually hurts.
Yeah, and you know what? We're getting to that. I have a note on that. So in episode 5, when, first of all, the sisterly fight between Jinx
that was great.
is so well written. It's so unbelievable. The actors are so punchy with their deliveries. It was watching sisters fight. It was
so good.
Yeah. It was so good.
The writing in episode 5 is absolutely the best of the season.
Yes,
so far. No question.
And so when Vi accidentally on purpose bloodies Isha's nose and the blood drops from her nose onto the floor or onto the stone in the cavern, my gut reaction was immediately, Isha is dead. And so let me explain, though. I did not expect Isha to die in this moment. I did expect Warwick to show up, or Vander. I did expect Vander to show up. I did expect him to rage out. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, about how we kind of like, the jig is up. We're on to you. We know what you're doing. I expected... They were relying on the audience to go, oh, the blood, and it's a drip, and we saw that was singed, and Warwick showed up, and so, or Vander, I'll call him Vander, because I think it might be confusing if I could say Warwick. And then Vander showed up, and he caused all this destruction, and he killed a bunch of people, so here's this blood drop again, and they know that's what the audience is associating with that. And I said, well, we're going to be misdirected. Isha's not going to die here. But what's going to happen is we are going to expect Warwick or Vander to show up. We're going to expect Isha to die, but she's not going to. So we're going to have the release of that tension, and then she'll die. Which is exactly what happened. So I was very tuned into that. And I think that, like you say, it is just it's criminal that we aren't more emotionally invested in Isha. Right. I think that she is a great, what we've seen of her great little character. I think it's possible that she's not dead, right? We didn't see her die. But in the moment, it's like, if we're going to lose someone, it's going to be her. We can't lose anyone else. We can't lose anyone who's in the game, right? They all have to survive, at least through to the game. So I know Victor's not dead.
Right.
Isha's not in the game. So it's like once she got her nose bloodied, it's like, okay, this is a telegraph. She's going to die.
I'm actually deeply scared. I'm actually deeply scared for Mel.
Mel.
I don't think she
makes
it out.
That's another one to be scared of. But I'll tell you what, depending on how they develop her powers in the next 3 episodes, I wouldn't be surprised if they planned on.
They might be making her into a new champion. Sure,
that would be cool.
Which would be cool, especially if she actually was born with those tattoos. What do they mean? What do they do? Yeah. Where are they from? So maybe she gets out alive, but we only have 3 episodes. How do they tie this all together in any way that's satisfying? I don't see it.
I don't know, but I'm willing to trust. I'm willing to trust, especially predicated on this.
Yeah, especially after 5 and 6 and this, I'm back to trusting. But it's just so frustrating that we had so much wasted time before we got here.
I completely agree with you there. My next note is this is not Kino. So when Mel gets trapped in the room and he introduces himself and she touches his face, oh, brother, it's me. And he recognizes her. Oh, Mel. Immediately my gut was like, nope, this isn't him.
Well, especially they had stuff like the drops of water going in reverse. And also
we had the drops of water going in reverse. We had Kino just mysteriously teleporting around the room. And I know that could have probably been indication of like camera trickery or maybe some like super minor nano time jumps, but I'm watching him do it and I'm like, nah, this isn't Kino.
Right.
And then, so this is one of the parts where it became a benefit to know the game lore. And I even talked to you about this last week, I think. So the Black Rose, you and I were kind of upset with the way that it was introduced. Too quick, too much all at once. It was not handled well. As a result, I threw my hands up. I was like, I don't know what the hell the Black Rose is. But after a little bit of time thinking about it, I do know what the Black Rose is. There's a character in the game.
You mentioned LeBlanc, right?
Yes. There's a character in the game called LeBlanc who heads up the Black Rose, who is in league with Swain, who does end up, I think, taking over Noxus. So he does end up becoming the ruler, and she does end up with a seat of power as a result of that. I don't know how far in the past this is. But when she bashes not Kino's head against the wall and the thorns and the chains and everything come out, and we see he starts to get those lines under his eyes. LeBlanc has those lines painted on her face.
Oh, so it's her then.
Yeah, that was probably LeBlanc. Yeah.
Is she a shapeshifter or an illusionist?
She's an illusionist. So she does. So her magic involves illusions. She can create duplicates. She can change herself to look like someone else. She can change someone else to look like someone they're not, and she can also she also uses chains. So she can chain herself like with an illusory chain. She can toss it out and chain herself to someone.
Then that's 100% who it is.
Yes, that is absolutely who this character is.
Okay.
So I had this is not Kino. So then I have a bit more general notes. I think because eventually I got to a point where I couldn't take notes anymore. I was so transfixed.
Yes,
so I was just watching, and shame on me. I didn't take notes. I apologize, but I'm pretty certain that we can probably wing it because I've talked for about a solid 45 minutes now, and you have more to address. So I'll probably lean on you for that for sure. But I just have really quick notes here at the end. I say music and animation are correctly used. Finally, we've already addressed that, but I think that it's important to impress that the issues that I had with the different animation styles in the first part of the season, as well as the music that seemed incessant and annoying. And again, didn't really like it in episode 4, but that's because I was transitioning in from those first 3 episodes. Absolute home run in episodes 5 and 6. Nowhere is it misplaced. Everywhere it's used, the lyrics are clear and important. They are very evocative. They are very emotional. It was a very big part of my emotional investiture in the situation and the characters. So knocked it out of the park there. Here's something. the bridge song motif. It shows
Yes.
up again.
Yes.
But it
Yes.
hasn't
Is
it
that
didn't
good?
show up in the first 3 episodes. Not that I heard, but this time, and this is more of sort
This
of
time they're associating it with Warwick.
well, yes, but in a way that again turns season 1 upside down. We are now seeing, because in season 1 the bridge motif was very, it started off innocent, it moved into clandestine, and then it became very, very sinister. Now it's triumphant, it's a reunification, it is genuine in the invitation it extends to come across the bridge. And so I found that to be very interesting. It was very powerful when I did notice it, because it was something that really rang out in the moment.
Yeah, I caught it on my second watch through. I actually missed it the first time around, but then it was like, oh, hey, it's the Dear Friend Across the River song,
Right, and
it's so good.
It's less isolated, right? It's less a single.
Yeah,
voice
it's integrated.
and there's an orchestral swell, and
Exactly.
It's a part of the motif.
It's part of the score. It's part of the score.
It's so well done. And this is actually appearing elsewhere.
It's actually interestingly, this is the first time that we've heard that song in a non-diegetic form, right? Every other time it was a character. A character was actually singing it in the first season every time it appeared.
And now it's
sort of only twice. But.
Now it's sort of like read into the fabric of what is happening in front of us. And the song's also appearing elsewhere. So if you log into League of Legends and you queue a game up, this is the music that plays. So it's like they're sort of kind of reaching out, which is neat, right? Because if it's going to represent unification, and this is a mixed multimedia story, they're unifying all the media now too, which is, it's not diegetic, but it's an interesting little point. And then also the very last note that I have is Malzahar. So when we see Jace, when we see Jace in the void through his mental anguish, sort of being manipulated or being approached by this like large humanoid void figure, I think that we know for sure that Jace is being mind controlled because he's got that gem in his wrist. I think that this is Malzahar. So Malzahar he's a human, but he's been in the void for so long it's affected him. The void is an actual place sort of between worlds. It is where magic comes from, but there are void creatures. They're very insect-like that every once in a while one will come through, and they're playable champions in the game. But it's not a nice place, and all they want to do is kill and eat. They're like locusts.
Oh, so it's the warp.
Yes, it's very much like the warp. Very, very much like the warp. It's just, I'll say, more focused than the warp, right? So they have a very singular drive, which is to consume. Okay. And so that's the last note I have. Is it Malzahar? I don't know. It would be unsurprising to me to find out that it is. It would also be unsurprising to me if we just let it lie and didn't address it, right? Because Rise was in the very first episode of season 1. The teleporter, he kind of teleported Jace to safety and allowed him to live. Like, he wasn't given a name. The only way you would have known his name is if you're familiar with the game and the lore and the characters and their different abilities. Never addressed him again. So this could be a situation where it's like, it's just a void entity. It doesn't matter who it is. And it might not matter who it is, but I that's the note.
Maybe it will, because the gem, the dead Hextech, the dead raw Hextech gem that Rise gave him is what got fused into his wrist. He was always wearing it. He was always wearing that in the first season in that little leather wristband, right?
Yeah,
because that was his memento of that life-changing event for him.
Good
now
point.
It's actually fused into his wrist.
Yes, good.
They took the time to specifically show that. That's obviously going to be important somehow. It also looked like it was recharged. It looks like it's back to being blue instead of gray again. So I think that he actually is carrying arcane power inside of him now, rather than it's not just that he's off his nut. He's tied to the arcane the way Victor is.
Right. which is like there's so much that needs to get wrapped up. Like Jace
I
needs
know,
to
man.
Jace needs to like sober up and get cleaned up. Victor needs to come back from the dead, or at least be demonstrated to be sort of maybe an ethereal existing off and away in some plane between planes. I don't know. That's a guess. That doesn't come from the game or anything. That's just, Victor can't be dead. We have
He still needs to get his hex claw.
Yes. We still need Vander to. Oh, they call, like, I watch with subtitles on, because whatever. I don't need to tell you the reason. I watch with subtitles on, and every time he speaks, it says Warwick in the subtitles. Like, they're calling him Warwick.
Interesting.
But the characters are calling him Vander, but Vander needs to be calmed down. We need to deal with Isha. We need to deal with Ambessa and the. Did you happen to watch the teaser for the next?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to deal with Piltover being attacked, right?
By Noxian Shimmer soldiers.
Yes, yeah. So like, there's a ton here that we really need to deal with, and I am fearful for only having 3 episodes to do it.
Right. Me too, because again, I'm going to spit all over the first. The weaknesses of the first 3 episodes just become more magnified by how good the next 3 episodes have been.
Yeah. Like, truly, this is why I have started
to actually, given how much time they took up and how little we have to resolve everything, I've actually started to resent those episodes, which I hate to say. I don't want to resent anything about this show, but I resent those episodes because
I don't resent them, but I definitely understand.
It's just how poorly they were done, and most of the stuff that we saw in them was not necessary. This is where we needed to be right away. This is where we all wanted to be.
Yes.
Now that we're in episodes 5 and 6.
I mean, we
episode 4 too.
I think
really
that
good.
this. Heath said in the Discord server that Brianna had mentioned that these 3 episodes pretty much address all of our concerns that we had.
No, they really don't.
First 3, and
I mean,
it doesn't mollify everything, right? Like, it doesn't make it go away. It's not burying anything. But had we just started here, I think that yes, all of our issues would have been solved.
Yeah, we would have had no issues at all. It does. The writing, and maybe what she's saying, she is correct in one way, is that what the writing in these episodes, all the problems we were talking about have been addressed and fixed.
Yes.
So they're addressed in that way, but it doesn't fix what came before.
No.
So
it does not fix it. It does not make it go away. It's still there. There is still pieces of information that we need to get out of those first 3 episodes in order for these 3 and likely the next 3 to in part make sense. But most of what was there was just not necessary.
If you'd taken episode 2 of season 2 and you'd spread it out into 2 episodes, episode 1 and episode 2, and then had episode 3 be basically like episode 4 is good, but it could be compressed down, I think. And so have episode 3 be episode 4 and part of episode 5 up until they hug Vander.
Mm-hmm.
I think that pretty much and then you can have episode 6 be like, you can have the second half of episode 5 and episode 6 start off act 2, and then we're in a real good place.
Yeah, I think they needed to move the timeline forward, and I think that they needed
the fact that we actually did have a time jump of at least weeks, if not months, in this.
Right. And this is not a situation where, like, every time you make a new Spider-Man movie, you have to call back to Uncle Ben and his origin because it's a standalone movie, and you can't count on people seeing the first movie, and it's not in theaters anymore. So no one has the ability to go and watch it in the theater. This is in an antiquated time when there was no such thing as home video, I guess. But like with Netflix, I have everything I need. It's all there. I will have watched it, and I likely will have watched it again going into the new season. Even though I didn't, I would like to have been respected as though I had.
Yeah.
And it felt rushed. It felt like it was a decision that was made after the fact because they felt like they needed more explanation, or there was something about where I think they wanted to start that they thought wasn't clear or adequate, or maybe they just needed, maybe they only had written story enough for two acts, right? Maybe they only had episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and they were planning on those being 1 through 6, and they went, well, I guess we got to front load something because we need more time. Netflix ordered 9 episodes, and I hate to be cynical like that, but this time it feels that way. And I don't want to keep harping on the first 3 episodes. Personally, I know that you have more to say about that, and I want to get to that, but I don't want to, because if the next 3 episodes resolve in, and see, that's part of it. Like, we're sitting here and we're saying, I don't know how they're going to be able to resolve all of these threads, but that's a part of it, right? That's a part of the fabric of the show. Is this mystery? We don't know how it's going to happen, if it's going to happen. We don't know what's important, what's not important.
Yes, it is. It is part of the DNA of the show. We had that kind of sense in the first season, the entire way through, but it wasn't because it was overloaded. A lot was happening, but it never felt like there wasn't enough time to get to where it needed.
Okay, that's a reasonable take.
This feels like they're overloading because, again, if we'd taken the important stuff that we've seen so far and expanded around that and allowed it time to breathe and just gotten rid of episode 1 entirely and whatever else, I think we would be talking about it in a similar fashion as, look at the storytelling in this season. It's just like season 1. There's so much going on, and I don't know how it's going to resolve, but I wouldn't at this point be worried that they've painted themselves into a corner and won't have enough time to give everything a satisfying resolution.
I think that's a genuinely prescient take. I think you're right. I don't know. I guess I think that I'm probably trying to be a little bit more forgiving maybe than normal, because I really do like these 3 episodes. Me too. Want it to end well, so I am trying to give it the best, the best that I can give it. I'm trying to give it the best perspective, the best expectations. I think we were very plain with how we stated our disappointment in the first 3 episodes last week. But I'm willing to move away from that based on these 3 episodes and like what happened. Okay, what I really want them to get to, right? I really wanted to get to Victor. I've wanted that the whole time, which is like, that was a kick in the pants.
I did say last week.
It was like the real kick in the pants. But like, that's okay, because I don't think he's dead. Really, really wanted a Vander presence as Warwick. Really got that, and in such a better way than I was expecting. I was expecting just a mindless brute, and I think that there would have been some interaction with Vi recognizing who he is and Jinx recognizing who he is. I didn't think it was going to go in the opposite direction, and I sure didn't think that Vi and Jinx were going to come to some sisterly, familial understanding and reunite as a family. That was absolutely out of left field for me, though now having seen the episodes, it's like, of course that's where they were headed. They would have to, but especially if they want to keep on pace with upending everything that we saw in the first season, which again it's why I think we're going to get a happy ending. It's not going to be fairy tale happy. People will die. There will be some side things that happen. For all we know, Vander has absolutely lost his mind and does in fact become Warwick to a point where he does not recognize his family any longer. But at least he's alive, right? Like, at least
doesn't Warwick even in the game recognize Vi?
Yes, he does. There are some lines where it's like he says, "Who taught you how to throw a punch?" or like those sorts of things, because he's the one that taught her how to throw a punch. So there is that sort of recognition in the game. And that was, gosh, I don't know when that showed up. It was before the series for sure. But I forgot. I don't remember when those lines started to show up. And there's lines between Vi and Jinx and Caitlyn and Vi. But I'm man, that can't be everything I have to say about it. I mean, I guess it might be, right? Because we're waiting for the resolution. We're waiting for the last 3 episodes. So what do you have? Anything? Is there anything in addition?
Oh, sure.
You don't have to, but if you do,
yeah, no, I got a bunch of stuff in addition.
Street.
No, I've got a bunch of stuff in addition.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
You were already kind of going in this direction with what you were just saying. Once again,
I'm still here. I just had to turn my camera off for a minute.
Okay. Once again, Victor remains the most interesting thing about this season. That's what I said in Act 1. That's the reason the second episode was the best one in Act 1. Mm-hmm. It's because it had a lot to do with Victor, and he was the most interesting thing. He remains so. Everything around him is fascinating. I thought that the animation jumped back up to the level of the first season when we're dealing with all the Arcane stuff and his visions. Mm-hmm. It's obviously confirmed that Skye isn't dead. She just got sucked into the Hex Core and has been subsumed into it. So now they are united, and the fact that she's sitting there helping him study and learn about the Arcane was amazing. I loved everything that had to do with the animation involving all of that. The scene of Jinx talking to Silco's chair was devastating because what's so cool about that scene is she actually because she's got Isha now and she's embraced the fact that she is Jinx now, even though I know she threw the gear at Fishbone's head on the wall and said that Jinx is dead, but she has, at the same time, she was like, when she first ran into Isha, she was like, hey, if you need a family or a society destroyed, my card, pointing at the wanted poster. She has embraced that. So she no longer has the psychotic breaks constantly, and she misses the voices.
She knows who she is.
She because remember at the Twisted Tea Party, right? The Mad Hatter's Tea Party. She's like, nothing ever stays dead. And the reason she says that is because they're still alive in her head, right? She's always hearing them. She's always hearing all these ghosts from the past. So she literally doesn't have a way to differentiate between who's alive and dead. Well, in this, she's like, if you don't say anything, that means you're really gone, which is just heartbreaking.
Yes. And also, I think that when she spins the chair around and she's done nothing to it, there's no paint, there's no mock Silco. That I think that hit, that I was immediately aware of it, and it hit very, very hard because usually when she's talking to someone who isn't there, she's at least mocked them up. Yeah, and we don't get that this time. She had an empty chair.
She had the mannequins of Clagger and Milo and talked to them all the time, and you almost would have. You're right. You would have expected her to do something similar, so she could talk to Silco, quote unquote. But no, it's just his chair. And it goes back to the best scene in Act 1 when she and Savika are in his office talking about him, about how useless he was without them, but when really they're the ones who are useless without him, right? Best scene in this first act, I think, as far as writing goes. And in this one, you're kind of you're kind of referring back to that as well. So, that I thought that was a fantastically, the direction on the scene too, just the timing of how the chair came to the side to occlude the camera and then back out to show Jinx and that kind of metronome quality, the timing on it, just fantastic direction. Really loved that. The going going back, and I just got random thoughts all over the place. Going back to
no, that's fine. I did the same thing. Go for it.
Going back to the flashback of Kate of Vi and Powder's mom in the last drop, back in happier times.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that's raised is there's something to do with that "Our Love Is a Bourbon Fountain" song that is very significant for these three people. I wonder if I mean, I don't know, but she's like, you two are gonna figure this song thing out, right? And so there's something with that triad of characters that's very significant. It's very interesting. I don't require an answer because what they showed us was so strong. Like we get all the emotional weight that we need from that relationship. But I'd be very interested if they bring that up again, what that has to do with anything. I have no idea. It would be a complete surprise, but it would be very interesting. Man, that whole scene is such good writing. Everything about it is subtext. It's so good. I thought that the fight scene with Vander and Vi
Mm-hmm.
was amazing, as they're throwing each other around and bursting all the puff balls, and things are just getting darker and darker.
Yeah,
just
the
lights are going
audio
out.
luminescing puff balls. That was
So cool.
Yeah.
It was great. But I don't know if you caught when he's charging at Tisha and Vi intercepts him with her trademark uppercut.
Mm-hmm.
She did not hold back at all because it exploded his face.
Yes, his face exploded, and then
it just pulled itself back together like Play-Doh. It was crazy.
I did notice that, yeah.
And I mean, we'd already seen him literally walk off bullet holes, Hextech bullet holes, from Jinx's gun. But doing the X-ray punch like they did in the fight at the end of episode 8 in season 1, and showing all the bones breaking and everything. They did that with her punching his rib cage and shattering his ribs, and then of course he's fine. Just goes to show how whatever Singed did to him, how effective it was. A lot of information was given just in that. Like, thankfully, there's none of the "I am character, I feel this way" like you were talking about.
Yeah, that's all gone. Thank God.
But another thing that Act 1 didn't really do a lot of was give us anything other than the information we were just being shown. So there wasn't a whole lot of depth in the information we were given, whereas now they're back to using the animation to actually tell us part of the story.
Yes, it's actually visual storytelling.
Yeah, actual visual storytelling, exactly. So yeah, that just the environments that they're coming up with. Again, all of these glowing sound activated fungus, like why? But who cares? It's awesome. It's an amazing visual, very atmospheric. And Jinx eating one and going, yeah, they're not even toxic. Pretty sure, It's very, very Jinxy and very chaotic. Just a lot of little things like that are like, these are the characters that we recognize again. They kind of felt off before. I'm wondering if, going back again to Mel. I wonder if she's like, well, maybe you would know. I don't know if LeBlanc's powers Can't she just delete people with her chains like she did with Allura, or was that?
I
do
mean,
we have
yeah,
to say that
kind
that's
of
an
like
illusion?
her ultimate is to cast whoever's standing near her as an enemy. She'll cast a bunch of chains out to them, deal damage over time, and then a huge burst of damage at the end. So like, yeah, that can happen.
Okay, all right.
It's not
Yeah,
like
so-
it's not always going to happen. You can totally whiff it, but it's it was believable as a part of
Okay.
her kit.
So probably then Allura probably actually is dead then.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I don't know. She just kind of
Evaporated.
scrunched. Yeah, she just kind of scrunched down and into a line and disappeared. And so, if Mel is being held somewhere in some kind of an illusionary space, then maybe they both get out. I don't know. Like I said, I'm actually worried for Mel most of anybody in this season, as far as making it to the end, of people that I actually want to make it to the end.
Yes.
Because I really like her character.
No, Mel is a really, really strong character.
She was one of my favorites in season 1. What else was I just going to say? Oh, yeah, Isha. I wonder, but we're gonna go back to ragging on Act 1.
Go for it.
But way more of Act 1 should have been spent on. I already said this. We should have gotten to know Isha a lot better in Act 1. If you're going to end the episode with that big hexsec explosion, then yeah, I didn't want it to happen. I didn't want her to die, but it didn't hurt really because we didn't have enough time to really become invested.
Yes, I think it was
part of that. Like, we know that
surprising that she had a proactive role in her own death, but I don't. It wasn't a. And like I said, once she caught the bloody nose, I was like, well, this is it. We know that they're telegraphing she's going to die because the expectation is that Warwick's going to show up and rip her to shreds. And so I was expecting this. So it didn't really land with an emotional impact. It was way more emotional to have Victor's chest shot out. And I think they maybe knew that, right? Because he comes after Isha. So it's like, oh, hey, here's the death of this character, and that's the death. And oh, no, wait, here's Victor's death, in quotes.
Yeah.
So
but
I
again,
it didn't land, and I think they knew that it wasn't going to land, but I could be wrong. They maybe expected it.
I mean, we know that they can get us super invested in a character in just one episode. That's what they did in the first episode of season 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just that opening on the bridge is so strong that we immediately are invested in. Even before we know their names, we're invested in Vi and Powder as characters. So a little bit of a missed opportunity there, I guess. Yeah. I feel like everything, not everything, but some things happened in a little bit too rushed of a fashion, just because they are running out of time. Again, Caitlin and Vi, hey, we're back on the same team, I guess. Just like that. I like what Caitlin has. I like her arc this season. It's fairly interesting, but it's taken up way too much time.
Yeah,
they've spent way too much time on her.
It's also really
to get nowhere
places, right?
Yeah, right.
It's so unevenly paced with her.
Exactly, the pacing issues are terrible. We needed some less time on a lot of the stuff that we spent time on, and more time on the really important beats.
Yes.
So again, I lay all the weaknesses that there are in Act 2 at the feet of Act 1 in this season. I don't understand what the point was for a lot of what they already showed us. It wasn't needed. We could have assumed actually, that reminds me of a thought I did have, is the whole scene with the checkpoint in episode 4 is like, oh, this is basically like, we knew that we were going to get here for the entirety of all of the first 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
We should have gotten here a lot faster. Like as a foregone conclusion based on everything that had happened in season 1.
And that is definitely a necessary bit, right? From the first 3 episodes, we need to see the invasion. We need to see them lining people up. We need to see the checkpoints. We need to see the abuse. Like, we need to see all that. That has to be.
It did, and it just should have happened earlier in the season.
Yes.
So yeah, overall very happy with the act. Very annoyed that it didn't happen sooner. Quite worried about whether or not the last act can be satisfactorily resolved. But everything that you said about the music being back to the kind of impact level, rather than just once they got their last 2D slideshow music video out of their system at the start of episode 4. I hope they don't do any more, because it's such a weird departure. Every time they did a music video section, except for Echo's bridge fight and the introduction of the Firelights in the Boy Savior episode, it was all fully animated still. It might have been stylized, but like I said last week, it was a directorial and editing stylization, not a stylistic one, as far as the actual art goes. Using the very stylized 2D slideshow kind of thing for Vander's viewpoint, though, as Warwick actually has worked very well, as well as his memories of Vi and Powder growing up, being that kind of watercolory, almost child storybook illustration kind of a thing. That worked really well too, because we're viewing like inside his head, you know. But I hope that they just stick with actual animation from here on out. Like I said, I don't know if that was a budgetary issue or not. But it kind of feels given what they did with these episodes, it kind of feels that way now.
Yeah, it does. I think that this set of episodes brought some things into stark focus. I think that there were probably budgetary concerns. I think that they did start in a better place, and then they ended up going, no, we can't do that. And hey, like I said, could be wrong. If I ever get an opportunity to ask Alex, I'll ask him. I'll be like, hey, did you really mean to start at episode 4 instead of episode 1? I'm sure I will never get an answer. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like on this side.
There's a principle in writing, whether it's screenwriting, novels, or whatever else. The rule of thumb is that you should always start your story. Not always, but generally you should start your story later than you think you need to. That way you're starting at a high point of tension.
Yes.
And people don't care about the character until they know what they want and why they can't get it. So all of your lovely crafted backstory and build up to that thing should be told after you've introduced that thing. Whatever it is that they want, whatever it is that the conflict that's preventing them from getting it, because we won't care about the backstory until we know why it matters.
Yes.
And anyway, that's it. Just the first 3 episodes seem so directionless now. I mean, they felt directionless before. That was a big reason that we were complaining about them. But now that we're where we're supposed to be, and this is the reason we came and watched Arcane in the first place, it's like, okay, now they feel even more pointless.
It's back, baby, but it took them a week.
Yeah.
3 episodes.
Yeah. So I just,
I think they have said, right, that
question.
they're going to continue to tell stories in this world. It's just that Arcane is now coming to
Possibly.
a close.
Yeah. The Arcane, the series, is only going to have the 2 seasons.
This is where I
5.
wanted to be. Like, after episode 6, this is where I wanted to be. Last week I said I didn't need more than season 1. It was a complete self-contained story.
Yeah.
It could have left off where I left off. I didn't need a second season. Going into those first 3 episodes, that was so incredibly apparent to a point where I wish I only had the first season. But these episodes have absolutely achieved that redemption. I do want this. I do want to see more of this. I do want to see where they take these characters in these situations. It's now, the first 3 episodes, very plot driven. It's now character driven.
Right.
Is what we wanted out of it, because that's what we got for the entirety of the first season. So, I'm so glad that we're here. I'm glad that we got it. I'm excited for the next 3 episodes and the conclusion. I'm excited for whatever else the studio wants to do if they're going to tell stories this adeptly. But let's avoid those unnecessary little bits, right? We don't need everything that we got.
I would have liked to have. Officer Maddie seems like she could be an interesting character. I would have liked to have a little bit more actual interaction. Another reason why her waking up in Caitlin's bed was so jarring is because they literally never interacted at all in the first season, other than Maddie saying, "Looks like there's no one here. Sorry, Commander." Very businesslike. In the middle of them raiding the arcade. So, what's the connection? What's the attraction? Other than that, they're 2 hot girls who apparently both like hot girls. I
think that we could have benefited had they had more time, right? Had they not known that this was going to be the end of the season, I could have been totally fine with interlude style episodes where we just get to know Maddie, or we get to know Seb, or we get to know someone who they've just, or Isha, for crying out loud. Let us get to know these characters. And that's maybe what they could have used the first 3 episodes for, were these interlude style episodes to get us caught up and emotionally invested in these characters that were eventually going to go on to, shock us or die, or we should have that investment. And so I would even have been okay with that. I likely would have been very confused out of the gate, right? If you're going to start off the second season with interlude episodes, I'm going to be confused. But that probably would have been better than what we ended up getting. Maybe? I don't know. I can't say that honestly, because I don't know, because we got what we got, right? I don't know how I would have reacted had we gotten some other episodes. But if they had more time, if this was going to be season 2 of 3, we likely could have gotten these interludes to get to know the characters a bit more. But it's, sometimes story writing can be really fast and loose like this. Where do they have to get to by the end of the season? They really need to make decisions during this season that drive us there in every scene, which they didn't do in the first 3 episodes. So it's not like they've been doing that, but
I still maintain that
if they, the best way to handle it, though.
I still maintain that if they had stuck with their storytelling convention of starting each episode with a flashback or a prelude, something that happened at an earlier point.
Right.
That it would have solved a lot of the problems, because you can use those to set up. And I mean, again, they've proved they can do it. Just that cold open for episode 1, that scene on the bridge is so powerful and immediately gets you invested. Also, another advantage of that, which is I think sorely missing in season 2. having those flashbacks, interludes, context cues, whatever you want to call them, serves to provide little bookends in your memory to make each episode distinct. Like I can immediately go back to season 1. Of course, I've watched it so many times,
right?
So that's part of the reason. But I can still immediately go back to season 1 in my head and think, oh, okay, this episode is when this happens because it had those bookmarks, if you will, to separate each episode. Those little flashback openings, and each one of them set up, in some cases, a very distinct style. Like episode 7 stands out. The Boy Savior is so unique because the way they handle that flashback. It's not really a flashback per se. It's kind of a flashback. It's more of a montage, I guess you'd say. Anyway, now in season 2, all the episodes are kind of running together. Like each one picks up immediately where the previous one left off. There's no real, and again, this probably plays into the pacing issues as well. There's no way to think back. It's very difficult for me to think back and say, okay, this episode is when this happens. I've caught myself mixing them up some. So I just don't understand why they didn't stay with that pattern that they've already set up. It was part of the flavor and part of what made Arcane so unique and effective in its storytelling. And that kind of identity has been lost in season 2. For the worse, in my opinion. So all that being said, I very thoroughly enjoyed Act 2.
Man, big downer. Let's end it here. I'm kidding.
No.
I think that there were. It's like, look, and not to be too completely negative. I don't disagree with you, but there's some allowance that I can make for season 1 being so incredibly ironclad perfect that it was going to be a very difficult thing to follow it up, right? So they were already working against themselves. And then I feel like there was just one bad decision that they made where they went, you know what, we can't start here. This is too much. Too much is different. We can't rely on the audience to get there on their own. And I think that's usually always a bad starting point for decision making with regard to stories, especially film and television. But here I think that it just has done so much to undermine the audience's experience. It's a very little amount of distrust in the audience, but it's enough. Like I noticed, most people noticed. So I'm willing to forgive a lot, especially if they're, pressures of production, pressures of budget. Netflix was probably pressuring them. I highly doubt that Riot was pressuring them, because I think Riot has pretty much just gone, nope, you get to do what you want because season 1 was so great. And I think that the first 3 episodes are forgivable. They're just disappointing, right?
Yeah.
You may find them unforgivable, and that's totally fine. That's totally valid. I am not trying to take that away from you. Personally, they were more disappointing than they were unforgivable. Like, I can forgive them. I have forgiven them. It's disappointing because of what we could have had, because of what could have been. But such is the way of speculation, right? Like, it's always better in your head than it ends up being on screen. With the exception of Arcane. I'll exclude that. It's usually better on screen than I could have conceived on my own. But those 3 episodes.
Here's what I foresee is like I go back and I will watch every single episode of the first season and enjoy every single one just as much. I feel like I can
skip the first 3 episodes.
Skip the first, like if I go and rewatch season 2, I'll just start at episode.
I had that same thought. As soon as I got to the end of episode 6, my thought was, oh, well, I don't even need to watch those first 3. So whenever I do a rewatch of Arcane, I'm just going to start here. I'm just going to start episode 4 because I don't need those first 3 episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's
so much of it
very true.
So much of it, I mean, the fact that 2 of the major characters, they were set up apparently to be major characters, just completely vanish from this act, and you don't even notice. Just goes to show how,
yeah,
you know, it's like
I think that they really had to. Things are made very rapid in this season as a result of, I think, time concerns, and it's very obvious. And this is one of the ways that it's obvious. It's just
But again, they did it to themselves. spent too much time on stuff that doesn't matter.
They did.
I especially with Victor, man, he's so interesting. Everything about the Arcane, it's the name of the show, and so everything about what he's doing is just it's so cool to watch. I'm a sucker for like messianic figures. Like one of the reasons Jakar from Babylon 5 is my favorite character in all of fiction is because of his transformation from a vengeful, petty, bitter politician to an enlightened spiritual leader for his entire people. That kind of a transformation is catnip to me. I love that kind of character.
I think there's a lot to a messianic figure, right? And yes, especially when you get a twist, like when Victor is shot and he's dying, whatever's happening, transitioning, dying, whatever. And then everyone in the camp screams and falls over silent and their eyes go blank. And you like watch some sort of something leave their body. That's like, oh, he was maybe not healing them. He was maybe doing something else. Maybe he didn't understand. Maybe he did. But this is now we're throwing his altruistic motives into question.
I don't know that we're throwing
into question. So like it's a very interesting twist on a messianic character.
I don't know that we're throwing his. I don't think his motives are ever in question. Just that he's once again he is messing around with stuff that he doesn't understand entirely. Right. And
here's the thing. Sky has been tutoring him. Right. And we don't know if it's actually Sky. We want it to be.
Well, working alongside him at least.
Right. But we want it to be her, but we don't know that it's her. It could be some kind of void entity. It could be like, I think there's a lot that's going to necessarily be revealed in the last 3 episodes. And it's going to be very, very shocking.
Well, the fact that he could, when we were introduced to Sallow in the healed form, and the fact that Victor can just literally take over his body, and remotely pilot it and talk through it.
Yep, remote into him
is an indication that all things are not hunky dory with whatever it is he's
something
doing.
Is afoot, and it is not okay.
His motives are noble, and he is improving their lives. But the fact that you can just supplant somebody's control and will over their own body like that is not kosher.
No, and if the Arcane is an intelligence, then it changes the context of what's happening. Because if the Arcane can manifest Sky and tutor Victor to do what it wants, it's allowing him to think that it's this altruistic entity and he's helping these people when he's actually possibly condemning them. I mean, we'll see where it goes. Maybe that's where it goes. Maybe it doesn't.
But he basically said that in the first season. It's like from all the accounts, the mages aren't limited to single runes. The Arcane said to speak through them. Right.
Yes.
And then they say it learns, it adapts. It's hextech that can learn, etc. So yes, there is something alive about it. And
more than alive, intelligent. There's something intelligent.
About it. Right.
In the first season, and I referenced this last last stream when we discussed this, when, you know, it was sort of feeding off of Victor's emotions. It recognized that he wanted to no longer have a bum leg, so it gave him a metal leg. It healed his leg. It recognized that he loved Sky, so it took Sky. Like, there are things that it was doing that was demonstrating some sort of, if not intelligence, at least some sort of sympathetic link that they had with one another.
Well, it's also vindictive too, right? Because when Victor was trying to get himself to smash it with the stool, and then it didn't zap him until it turned around and started walking away, and then it's like, don't you?
Yes.
How dare you? You know?
Yes. Yes.
So it's also emotional, which is interesting that Victor, as he's laying there, quote unquote, dying, is saying, I see now that the reason for all of this is our human emotion. For all of the suffering is the human emotions, and which I think that his glorious evolution is going to turn out to be, I have now transcended human emotion. I can be totally coldly rational, right?
Yeah, Dr. Manhattan.
Which is weird if the Arcane has emotions, as we've seen it demonstrate. So that's an interesting juxtaposition. Again, there's so many threads that are just that have to be resolved to provide a satisfying conclusion to the series.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if they can,
it's
going to be a Herculean task to pull it off in 3 more episodes.
And Micah says here, Victor's definitely thinking he's doing good. However, he's clearly only making temporary changes, as everything snapped back afterward when he was blasted. He also knows that his power, at least in his conversation with Singed, he knows that his power is.
How does Singed? That's another thing. How does Singed know that?
I don't know. That's a good question. He should.
He just assume,
like, what? Did he read the script?
yeah, exactly. He shouldn't.
What's that over there in the sand? Is that the script? Did you read the script?
Unless he's just guessing.
Yeah, he could have been guessing. He might have some information, like, because he's explored a lot. Because he's trying to bring his daughter back to life, essentially. He's been doing a lot of exploration,
but he's an
is
alchemist.
It believable that he knows? I don't know if it's believable, but it might be forgivable in its unbelief, if that makes any sense.
I don't know.
I'm excited to see where it goes, though.
As an alchemist, his magic research is in a very different direction than the Hex Tech.
Yes, very chem tech.
He's demonstrated through his exclamations of curiosity and wonder that he really has no idea what's going on with all of this technology. His stuff is more focused on the biology. Like Victor was more hale and hearty than he'd ever seen him in his entire life. He's got a brand new synthetic body and all access to all sorts of power. It's an odd logical leap to say your power has limits. You're draining yourself to do all of this. Yes. Where's the evidence for that? Everything is thriving. The whole commune was thriving. The air was clean. There were animals and stuff that you saw nowhere else in the Undercity. So, like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing for him to say.
Yep, it is a weird thing for him to say. So
again, that was
with that. Maybe it's just a throwaway one-liner that they probably shouldn't have included.
I don't know. Like again, this is stuff that Victor's the most interesting thing about the show in this season, and we needed to spend more time on it.
I agree. He was the one where I wanted to see he went the most, where they took him. Man, it's been great. It's been an awesome ride. I was not expecting him to actually get blasted by Jace. I mean, obviously, when Jace was making his way into the camp, I expected something to happen. But I'm really excited to see where it goes. And
Ambessa continues to be an outstanding character.
Absolutely.
I really like her.
And Jinx in starting with episode 4 has really come a long way from those first 3 episodes, or even maybe season 1. It's like she is very, like, just, I'm really enjoying the way things have been turned upside down. I think that I really am hoping that it sticks the landing.
Yeah, me too. I really liked the scene where she was manipulating Caitlyn again by pretending to be. it was very Silco-esque. She's like talking about how maybe you're stronger than I am and can forgive and look for a better tomorrow, kind of a thing, just to get her to do what she wanted her to do, you know. When she's sitting there poking at the fire. But then the next time we see her and she's training, doing the combat training with Caitlyn, she talks about the Noxian pyramid, and it's like you've got 3 corners. You got awareness, you've got force, and then you have guile. You know, so she employs
on the 4th one.
Yeah, she is employing all of those principles and doing it's just a great character.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Mbessa and Victor are the tentpoles this season.
Yeah.
I think this is a good place to stop, right? We're 2 hours in. We got 3 more episodes down, and 3 more to go. And I am very, very excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to have this conversation next week. This week on Wednesday, it's going to be you, Jax, Ben, and myself. We're going to be talking about character death. This is a topic that was proposed by Ben. So I will personally likely be leaning on him. Don't tell him I said that. I'm kidding. So if you're interested in, role-playing games, character death, come on down Wednesday night at 8:30. No, 4:30 Eastern. Maybe 3:30. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. You will see the waiting room
sometime
go up
in the afternoon.
Be able to see, sometime on Wednesday, likely between 3:30 and 4:30. We'll see how that goes. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for the participation in chat. I apologize for not getting to many comments today. I tried to get
Micah has a comment on what we were just talking about. He says that Singed knows because he
keeps seeing all forms of power degrade and diminishing. That makes perfect sense. Like every time he's tried to use a power, it's only ever diminished. That makes sense. And PH rounds out the comments with, guys, it was great to be here with you and almost talking about Arcane. Sorry for detailing the subject on the No, you're fine. I'm sure you meant derailing. I'm probably reading that wrong. Anyway, I was listening to you and getting really inspired to watch it. I think you should watch it. I still have to respond to you in the Ravenkeep Discord, and I will. But I'm going to actually do it instead of saying I will and then not doing it. This one I'm actually going to respond. So look for that. Again, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you,
indeed,
TPR, the Twitter Pig Rancher, Sabril Phoenix for having this conversation, for even encouraging me to watch Arcane in the first place. So thank you for that, and we'll see everyone again on Wednesday with Jackson, Ben in tow. And thank you again. I'm going to end the stream now. End stream.
Please.